Welcome to the Black Male Impact. My name is Richard A. Cross, and today we have with us Dr. Dennis Kimbro. And I'm not going to give you a long bio of Dr. Dennis Kimbro, but I will say he's a distinguished educator, New York best-selling author, an expert on leadership, wealth, and success. Dr. Kimbro, welcome to the conversation, the Black Male Impact.
The Black Male Impact, man. Man, Richard, you are dealing, my brother. It's great to be with you. Now you're still up at Lincoln, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm still over here at Lincoln in Missouri, Jeff City.
How's your school doing?
It's going pretty good. We have some increase this semester, so we're looking forward to serving the students for the most part.
Yep. Okay. Well, it's good to be with you.
Likewise, man. It's great having you. You have been a guide and an inspiration and a leader that I really look up to. Even when I just started this journey, I remember you told me when I was getting in education, it's not just what I tell the students. I'm supposed to be in the classroom to inspire the students. So great teacher inspires. So that's my aspiration every day. Yeah, I just don't talk to the students about what I know. I make sure I inspire them to see themselves beyond where they are. And our students need that. So I appreciate you sharing with me. That was, I think, my first week when I was going on this journey. Someone said, man, if you're in Atlanta, you got to meet with Dr. Kimbro. And I find myself over there. And we're going to get into the conversation and real quick. But I know you didn't even know me. And at the time you saw me, man, you gave me 3 copies of your book, which I'll always remember and appreciate. And you said, man, you're going to do great. At the time, I wasn't so sure if I was going to do great. But that was what you told me, our first conversation. And I was trying to find the picture that we took to post, but I should find it on one of my phones. But we're going to get into the conversation. But do you have anything that you want to say to the listeners before we start the...
Oh, God, let's dive right in. I'm an open book, man.
Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So my first question to you is, what is the mindset that it takes to make a positive impact?
Wow. That is a great question because mindset is everything. Mindset is your greatest resource.
Okay.
But Booker T. Washington said it years ago, the circumstances that surrounds a man's and woman's life are not important. It's how that individual responds. What you do on your best day really doesn't matter. It's what you do on your worst day that will define your destiny and define your legacy. So mindset is everything. But that whole idea of mindset, Richard, and no one discusses this better than Stephen Covey.
Yes.
Stephen Covey has the 7 habits of highly effective people, and he talks about the paradigm of principle. And when I read that, that was the first time that I had really heard the term and wrapped my head and mind around the term paradigm. And what is paradigm? It's a system of beliefs. It's a system of behaviors and habits that we do unconsciously. Now, when you talk about mindset, and I said it's the greatest resource, it's only going to be a positive resource, Richard, if you take control of your mind.
Yes.
If you take control of your mind, if you use that resource. So what did Martin Luther King say? He said, your life is officially over the day you begin to think about, talk about, and do anything and everything that doesn't matter.
Wow.
Well, that's an example of you wasting your greatest resource.
Man.
If you live the normal life, Richard,
yes.
What is a normal life? 74, 77 years on earth? I've been blessed extraordinarily because I don't know any other Black male my age, well, they're all gone now, number one, who lived long enough, to pay off a mortgage. I've done that. My father didn't do it. My uncles didn't do it. My brother didn't do it. Think about that, Richard. Live long enough to pay off a mortgage.
Wow.
Number 2, I don't know any Black males that in my family and close associates who lived long enough to collect Social Security.
Wow.
And here I am, 71 years old, and I paid off a mortgage. Meanwhile, I burned the mortgage, and so unbelievably blessed. Well, to whom much has been given, much is required.
Well, and I tell you, You have been a blessing. I know it's not just to me, because anytime I mention you on any form of any platform, social media, and the response have been really overwhelming. So I know you have been very impactful and inspiring, and have been an inspiration to a whole lot of people, because once you say Dr. Kimbro, they know who we're talking. They know we're talking about the wealth choice.
Well, it's Richard. It's really not about me.
Yes.
It wouldn't be fair of all the individuals. It's like, and I apologize for making this process of you trying to interview me so tedious and arduous, and we finally got together.
Yes.
But it really wouldn't be fair to me, the individuals that gave me a moment of their time, who gave me the advice and the lessons and the words and the stories and the anecdotes that I would pour into the next generation. So, yeah, I've been blessed, but I'm on a task and I'm on a mission to take all those stories, that whether it's Think and Grow Rich, a Black choice, what makes the great great, the wealth choice, and make sure that it's taken to every nook and cranny.
Yes.
Particularly in the Black community. Because if we don't tell our stories, who will? Man,
that is powerful. I know the time that I asked for is not enough to get the wealth of knowledge, but I'm going to go into the next question that I have here to ask. And what advice do you have for the men listening on how they can play a role in creating positive change?
Don't give up your power.
Don't
give up your power. It is not, you talk about positive change. Richard, the last thing in the world we need is change. We don't need change.
Okay.
Particularly Black men don't need change. Well, what do we need? We need awareness.
Yes.
I mean, you need to thank God every day that my Bible says that we are created in his image. He's not created in ours. So are you aware of your power? And are you using your power? And what is the power that I'm talking about? I'm talking about attitude. I'm talking about attitude. An attitude, you talk about positive attitude, will affect an enterprise, an organization, a church, an institution, a school. Life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react. And particularly as African-American males, I mean, I shared with my students, I'm teaching doctoral students this semester.
Okay.
And when we talk about racism and we talk about diversity, there are 5 different, how do I want to say this, examples of oppression. 5 different forms of oppression. We just think that racism is one of them. No, there are 5 different forms of oppression. One is racism, sure. One is white supremacy. One is powerlessness. One is marginalization. Now, why do I bring that up? Because Black males are the only group that suffer from all 5. Wow. That suffer from all 5. From powerlessness all the way down to marginalization. Now, how are you going to overcome that? You're going to overcome that with mindset. You're going to overcome that with mindset. You can be a victim or you can be a victor. Booker T. Washington said it best. Like I said, the circumstances that surrounds a man's or woman's life are not important. It is how that individual responds.
Wow.
I've developed a close relationship with Ambassador Andy Young. And the stories that, here's a man, Richard, walked arm in arm, side by side with Martin Luther King over the course of his adult life. And the stories that he shared with me about Martin Luther King. He told me there were 3 times in King's life that he just knew that he lost the nonviolent movement. Number 1, those 4 girls were killed in that church bombing in 1963 in Birmingham, Alabama. Number 2, the assassination of Medgar Evers. And number 3, twice when King's house was firebombed. And each time when his faith got shallow, when his knees got wobbly, Richard, what did King do? He called his team together and they reinforced the principles. So much so, the principles of a nonviolent movement, so much so that his team got sick and tired of discussing the principles with King. So Ambassador Andy Young told me one time, King called his team together and they were all seated around the table. And who were the individuals seated around the table? Ralph David Abernathy, Jesse Jackson, C.T. Vivian, Jose Williams, Andy Young. They were all seated around the table. And King says to him, he says, fellas, we must be out of our mind to think that we can change this country. He says, bad news and good news. He said, first, the bad news. If we do change this country, no one seated around this table right now will live to see age 40. He said, that's the bad news. As you know, King was assassinated at 39.
Yes. Yeah.
He said, but here's the good news. Countless generations will benefit from the work that we are doing today.
Man, that's powerful.
And what made that happen? Mindset.
Yes, sir.
Staying focused to the prize. So Andy Young was telling me that he's coming back from a meeting with King and his associates, and this is 1955, and he's driving down Ponce de Leon Drive. You know Ponce de Leon Drive in Atlanta. About 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, going home. And when he's driving down Ponce de Leon Drive, all of a sudden, a huge pack of rats crossed the street. A huge pack of rats crossed the street. And I said, Mr. Ambassador, what did you do? He said, I turned my steering wheel and swerved, and I drove my car into the ditch to avoid hitting them. And I said, Mr. Ambassador, you got to be kidding me. Why would you drive into a ditch? Who cares about the rats? I mean, they were only rats. And he said to me, he said, man, you don't understand. In 1955 in Atlanta, Georgia, rats had more rights than African Americans. Wow. How far we have come.
Yes, sir.
How far we have come.
You know,
we don't live in a vacuum, Richard. We're not Jonathan Living Seagull. No one survives alone.
Yes.
And I know if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go high and you want to go far, go with others.
Yes.
It's when we unite the forces and when we move as one, when we get everybody in lockstep, right-minded attitude, which is a little bit more powerful than positive attitude. And there's nothing wrong with positive attitude. You know, I'm not a willy-nilly. I know I'm not one of those individuals going through life with rose-colored glasses on. Is the glass half full or is it half empty? Well, I would like to say that it's half full. And how do we get it completely full? At this point, focus on right mental attitude.
Right.
What really matters most. What really matters most. Holding dear to your values. There are 20 human values. Number 1 is achievement. And number 20 is wisdom in working. What are the values that you refuse to compromise on? What is the value that you live by? Why is that critically important? You never know who's looking. I tell my students all the time, regardless of discipline, you're African American, you're a college graduate, or even a college student, you're a role model. You are a role model. Why would I say you're a role model? Because every 92 seconds of the day, a Black child is born into poverty. Wow. Every 90 seconds of the day, a Black child is born to a teen mother who will never finish high school. I mean, every 42 minutes of the day, a Black child is suspended in school. Every 40 minutes of the day, a Black child is convicted of a crime. And every 7 minutes of the day, a Black child dies. You're already a role model. So you're worthy of, emulation. What am I asking you to do? Pass the baton on to the next generation. And that's what you're doing at Lincoln.
Yes. And as you say that with all those statistics, and we're talking about creating positive change. And as you said, which is right. And
you're freezing up.
Okay. Yes. So as you have shared, we have to see ourselves as examples. We have to see ourselves as role models, as you mentioned, because people are always seeing us, and they ask me every day, man, why you dressed up every day? I say, you know what, man, I can tell you, if you ask most of these students, they will tell you they haven't seen anyone and they don't own a suit. So if they're going to change their disposition, they need to see somebody who do it consistently and hold their values despite their environment. And you have said that to me several times. So that's one thing I don't compromise my values. It doesn't matter the environment. I'm going to show up as how I think will be a positive example for the people, especially for the young males around me. So I know the listeners have got a lot from that response. And I know a lot of people may not have known the statistics of what's happening within our community. So I know for myself, I appreciate that. And I know the listeners do Likewise. But I'm going to ask this other question. And I know you may have touched on it a little bit, but I still want to ask it because I know you will share some insight that is beneficial. So how can we as Black men help to change the narrative?
Oh, recognize, like I said, recognize the power that you have as an individual. Recognize the power that you have in a free and open society. I mean, basically, LinkedIn said there are about 5 factors in order to galvanize, take a group of individuals and move them towards a common objective. That's called collaboration. Number 2, communication. And we talked about communication. Empathy, number 3. People don't care about you until they realize how much you care about them. Just like that Outback steak commercial that says you can't fake steak. Well, Richard, you can't fake caring. You can't fake caring. Empathy, collaboration, galvanization, and connecting on common goals and common visions. Look, take time. Let them understand the power that they have and show them how they can use the power effectively. And that is key. That is key. When you look at the data right now, okay, so Black males are 6% of the population, but we are only 4% of the college population compared to 40% of the prison population. Richard, if that data applied to any other group besides Black males, there'd be boycotting and picketing in the street right now. Suppose that data applied to white males, Jewish males, Asian males. You couldn't even be able to walk down Peachtree Street right now before they would shut it down. But for us, it's business as usual. Well, somebody has got to stand and say, no, it isn't business as usual, and we're going to do something about it. That's right. And that's the centerpiece of all great movements. It only begins and starts with one individual. Great movements always begin with the soloist, not the choir. Find that one individual, that one committed soul. Because then I told you as a conversation that we had, nothing can stop the passionate, committed mind. Everything that we enjoy today has been created by the passionate, committed mind. Nothing can stop it.
That's right. You heard that, listeners. Once you're committed and passionate about the change that you want to make, nothing will stop you. And if you see something that you want to change, that's what it takes. It's not just going to happen. You have to be passionate, of course, and committed, to see that change. Because once you decide that you're going to make change, you may run up in some setbacks or oppositions, but that shouldn't stop you from doing what you know and believe will make a difference. And I really appreciate that, Dr. Kimbro. But I want to switch gear a little bit by asking who inspired you and what influenced you to choose the path that you're on?
Well, arguably, as I shared with Dr. Will, my parents were highly focused on education, though my mother had very little of it. My mother only had a 7th grade education. She was a nanny. But my father, me and my older brother, we weren't allowed to watch TV on school nights. But my father made one exception. He required me and my brother to watch this show. It only came on for 30 minutes, and it only came on one day a week. And what was the show? The show was Biography, and the host was Mike Wallace. And my father, and I remember, came on like a Tuesday, either at 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night. My father sat me and my brother down, and we would watch the show. And after we watched the show, my father would quiz us. And back then, Richard, I was looking, there were no Black profiles.
Wow.
You see, that's true nobility. You can learn from anybody. I can learn just as much from you as you can learn from me. Yeah. So I was watching profiles, Charles Lindbergh, who flew across the Atlantic, Babe Ruth, Eleanor Roosevelt, FDR. And those were the examples we were watching. And after the show, my father would quiz me and my brother. Okay, tell me what you saw. Okay, did they have a dream? Yeah. Okay, did they reach their goals? Yeah. Now, they didn't quit. They persisted, didn't they? Yeah. And so constantly doing that. And Richard, here I am today, and my life hasn't changed. My life is still biography. I'm still inquisitive. I still want to know. I still want to know the keys to success, the keys to wealth. I'm always sharpening my axe, sharpening the saw. I want the information. I will go to any lengths, to go ahead and do what you're doing right now. to sit down with these individuals. No, tell me more.
Yeah,
Why? To pass that baton on. And we are at a precarious point, man. Come on, black men. We need to raise our game. We need to up the ante, man. We got skin in the game, and we need to come on, man. A lot of things that we have got to be doing. And this time period that you are in now, it's like a relay race.
Yeah.
I mean, the 4 years, Richard, that you're at Lincoln University and I'm at CAU, when you have another group and cadre of students coming, you got 4 years to make sure that that baton is passed. In other words, this 4 years is really the exchange zone in a relay race.
Wow.
And if you pass the baton before you get to the exchange zone, you're disqualified. And if you try to pass the baton after they leave the exchange zone, you're disqualified.
Yes.
So we got to make sure that the next group that you're going to see at Lincoln University fit, focused, ready to run the race of their life.
And that is so important. I had that with a group this morning that I'm here to make sure I share with them everything that I know. And I also remind them that it doesn't matter what they start with. They can decide. I'm going to help them to realize what is possible, because I didn't start off where I'm at. I start off where I had doubts, but I meet some great individuals that help me to realize that it doesn't matter what was said to me. The greatness that it's already in me. It's just for me to nurture it and share it with the world. And so that's what I was trying to instill with them, not trying, but instilling with them this morning, or first session, because sometimes they need to be reminded what is possible for them. And as you say that, I want to ask a follow-up question with what you just said, because I know you talk about interviewing others, and that's one of the things that I admire about you. Yes. So one thing that you have done, have talked to several Black people who have achieved success. What are some of the principles that stood out to you that you believe would be important to the listeners?
Number one, they dream big dreams. They dream big dreams. We talk a passionate, committed mind. They had a dream, a passion, something that they wanted desperately in their life. Number two, they were inner directed versus outer directed. They weren't so quick to believe well-meaning friends or family members who said, you can't do this, you can't do that. They walked to a beat of a different drummer. Number three, they flat out refused to fail. Now, I'm not saying they didn't fail. Many of them actually failed their way to success, but they flat out refused to fail. And then number four, dedicated themselves to lifelong learning. They dedicated themselves to lifelong learning. You don't go to school one period of your life. You're in school every day of your life.
That's powerful. And I know with all the experiences, and I know that you mentioned that your mom didn't go all the way through school, but I want to ask is, what was a pivotal moment in your life?
Great question. I've had a number of them, but when I had finished the manuscript for what is now Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice, and it had been a long journey, a long, impoverished journey, talking more than 5 years of absolutely nothing. No money, no resources, no nothing. Because it was me, my 3 children, my wife and 3 children, and we were living off the earnings of her as an accountant. And by the time paid the mortgage just out of her salary and all our utilities, food, shelter, and clothing, we didn't have anything left over. Didn't have a dime left over. And if we did have a dime left over, it went right into this project. So long story short, I finished the manuscript and I said to my wife, I said, well, Pat, the book is done. I guess I'll just blow the dust off my resume and go back into corporate America unless I'm going to teach someplace. So I threw my resume out there. And lo and behold, I got a job offer with A.T. Kearney. Now, Richard, at that particular time, A.T. Kearney was number 4 in the nation in consulting.
Wow.
And they gave me an offer in the New York, New Jersey office. I mean, McKinsey was number 1 and Arthur D. Little and all those guys, Booz Allen and all that. And they were, A.T. Kearney was right up there. And they gave me an offer and I was ready to go and ready to start. And We were having a good time because, hey, we're going back to normal, going to have some money coming in, this, that, and everything. Well, a day after they extended the offer to me, one of the principals in HR called me up and said, Dennis, he said, in our haste to bring you on board, just one last item that we forgot to perform. I know it won't make a difference in the hiring process, but we got to do it anyway. Said, we got to perform a credit check. Wow. And I knew if they performed a credit check, it was game over because my credit was shot. Could barely pay my bills and, extensions and this, that, and everything. So sure enough, they performed a credit check. And the next day he called me up and A.T. Kearney rescinded their offer.
Wow.
And from the financial strain, Richard, just the financial strain, I fainted on my bedroom floor upstairs in my house. It just got to me and I just collapsed. I didn't know what I was going to tell my wife. I didn't collapse. So there were a couple of days, man, when it was touch and go for me. But on the third day, something rose up in me and I said, man, the nonsense that you're going through to go ahead and make this dream reality and the bullshit that you have been exposed to and dealt with. I mean, I think this book is going to be a powerful book. And I redoubled my efforts and I got my confidence back. And this is what I did. When my wife came home from work and my kids came home from school, told my wife and I told my three daughters, my youngest daughter, who's in her 40s now, early 40s, she was 7 years old at the time. And I said to her, all right, everybody go into the living room. And they said, why? I said, don't ask questions. Let's all go into the living room. So me, my wife, and my three daughters, we go into the living room. And I said, let's form a circle and let's hold each other's hand. So we held each other's hand and Richard, we formed the circle. And my daughters and wife said, what are we doing? I said, I just want you to look around. Just look around. Look at this room. Just turn around and look out the windows, look around. And my youngest daughter, again, 7 years old, she said, Dad, what are we looking for? And I said, Mackenzie, that's a great question. Said, take a good look. I said, this is the basement floor in your life. You will never see it again.
Wow.
And then right after that, man, it was almost like I was prophetic. Folks were calling. All the pieces were coming into place for the book. The top 12 publishing houses in the nation all bid on the manuscript. The floor bid, just the bid on that manuscript was 6 figures. And the rest was history.
That is.
But it took almost 7 years to get to that point.
And that's important. And some listeners may not realize how powerful that is because some people quit after 2 or 3 days.
Oh, yeah.
Or 4 days, or 5 days, or a year, or 6 months, 2 years. Yeah. But it took Dr. Kimbro 7 years to get that. And that book have helped me because I have the Think and Grow Rich Wealth Choice somewhere on my bookshelf, but I have the Wealth Choice here. And I remember in one of your interviews, I think it was Dale Carnegie that says, man, put down what you're doing and publish this book because they love and admire the work that you're doing within the Black community to share the wealth and how Black people have accumulated their wealth.
Mm-hmm.
And listeners, if you haven't read any of that Dr. Kimbro's book, please do.
Yeah.
You are in for a treat with the work that he has done. I can't stress it too much, I tell you, but you will benefit tremendously from reading. I'm going to, before I ask my last question, I'm going to ask you, where can the audience, the listeners, find your work so they can support?
Anywhere. You can get it at the local bookstore at the corner, or you can go to Amazon, Barnes and Noble, anywhere.
Okay.
Like I said, I've been blessed, and those books have a life of their own.
Yes, and I will also put a link somewhere for you guys to check out Dr. Kimbro's work.
Yeah.
And, he's a person that is committed to making a difference and leave a legacy so
Mhm.
we can benefit and others beyond us can benefit from his work. So my final question would be, what impact do you want to have on the world?
Leaving my legacy. And that's with anybody. When it's all said and done, what will others say about you?
Wow.
When it is all said and done. Everybody who walks this walk, this journey called life, you're really writing a book. So, Richard, when I get to the last chapter of the book, when I get to the last page of that book, when I read the final paragraphs, the final sentence, the last two words, what are the final two words? Hopefully, it's going to be I win. And the only way that you're going to win is to help others win first.
Man.
Leaving your legacy.
Yeah, that is important. I know you told me some time ago I think our time and for our time on earth is the service that we provide. Or the
Oh,
rent,
yeah.
the service we provide is the rent for our time on earth.
Yep.
And that's something that I hold dearly because we are here to serve others. Want someone share with us and help us to see what's possible. Now it's our turn, as you said. We pass the baton. We want to make sure we pass the baton. Don't wait until we're out, they run out of space. We wait until they're already gone. So we need to do what we can whilst we can, where we are with what we have. And
Exactly.
no, I thought you were about to say something. But this has been a great conversation. I know, Dr. Kimbro, we have several great conversations, but I'm glad I was able to have you share with me and share with the audience at the same time. So I greatly appreciate it. And thanks for being here on the Black Male Impact as the conversation continues, as our goal is to inspire positive change.
Wow. Thank you very much, Richard. God bless.
All right. Thank you. Same way.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.